Great. So how's life treating our Ruckus CEO right now?
Actually, very, COVID has been difficult for everybody. But it's probably easier for me not having to work because I know that working from home is not easy. And it's also easy for me because I didn't have to homeschool kids and do all of the things that a lot of people have to go through. I pretty much spend a lot of my time on philanthropy, part
Mm,
of which was, the last election and the upcoming elections.
I
Um,
see.
and also, I try to help some of the charity organizations. I try to look at giving resources in a more meaningful way. So, it's just a different focus. I keep myself busy.
That's awesome. The culture that we've had with Ruckus is one of the most amazing part of my life. And when I joined, I think I joined around December, and I joined the first sales kickoff in January. I was at Silicon Valley in Sunnyvale, and you were there on the stage. And what really resonated with me was when you said, "People don't be a hero." And I was like, "What does she mean by that?" And you said, "If you lose, don't lose alone. Lose with the team." And at the back of my head, well, if you're with the whole team, you can never lose. And I think that's the point that I had. And so yeah, so my purpose right now is to really bring it on into the executive leaders, how they impact people, the kind of culture that you've built around Ruckus. And why were you able to build a such an amazing culture in Ruckus?
Well, first of all, thank you for such a big compliment. Warms my heart. I miss you guys. And Ruckus was for me also, one of the most significant things I did in my life, and one of the most enjoyable journeys I took in my life. So, and before I start, I want to congratulate you. It's really wonderful that you are taking your experience in sales and in leadership, use it to mentor a next generation of sales leaders. And congratulations on taking control of your life and running your own business. I think it's wonderful. So,
Thank you.
on Ruckus, I was not really trained as a CEO. I did not have special mentors. I've watched some really good CEOs in action. They all had their strengths and weaknesses. I learned by osmosis, but I kind of figure out my way along the way. And now looking back, I think there were a few things that we did that made the culture at Ruckus so attractive to folks like you. So first of all, you hated politics, and I have had left companies because of politics. And so when I started Ruckus, one of the things I made was to be very insensitive to politics, to not encourage politics. In fact, to just, put a stop to politics. I wanted to create a workplace where people actually all feel that they belong. They have a
Yeah.
pride of ownership. I wanted people to feel that they were all part of building a company. So with that in mind, the first thing that I learned over the years is that we had to have a common goal. A common goal for us was to make our customers successful. Customers always came first, and that was clear.
Yeah.
Serving a customer was never just the job of sales or customer service. In my staff meeting, every staff meeting started with a hot site review, and we went through, no matter how long it takes. We went through all the hot sites and talked about action items and customer
Yeah.
temperature and what we needed to do and so on. That became clear then to all the functions. That's the critical goal for everybody at Ruckus. And what the objectives are. My personal belief is once you have that goal alignment, at least when the company is of a smaller size, you don't need that much management because
Yeah.
most people are intelligent workers, right? They see the goals, they know for themselves, for their individual job, what that means. And so transparency brings goal alignment. Once you have goal alignment, you can run a flat organization. Flat. The one thing that's also really important for people, and in the early days of Ruckus, what made us, I think what helped us create the culture was this transparency among employees. You know, this like quarterly all hands where we share the entire P&L with the rest of the company. Number one, it makes people feel that they are part of that, you know, push in building that company, right? It made them feel that the sense of ownership. But secondly, that is what you use to do goal alignment. Everybody knew at the corporate level, this is the situation. So then we look at company objectives for the following quarter, and then every team's objective that would feed into that. So it's very clear at that level that we did in the early days. You know, that's why everybody felt so proud of the accomplishments, because they knew along the way they were there, part of it, every step of the way.
Yes, and we were part of it, right? We were part of it. Every win, we were part of it.
Yeah. Secondly, I also wanted a company that is very focused on results, right? Get shit done.
Yeah.
That's those
sorry, Selina. I just wanted to I remembered. I don't know what you got upset in a certain situation. You said, guys, we're not gonna have a meeting to prepare a meeting for another meeting. Sorry, I just have to say that because that's what big corporates do. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's very true. You know, whenever we go into status meetings, right? I really hate it when the status is in progress. I mean, give me results or give me milestones that we have met towards that result. I wanted all of that to be measurable. I wanted people to get shit done. And, you know, I wanted, like I said, don't be a hero. I wanted people to leverage all the talents, all the resources they could with the purpose of getting things done. And I also want people who are obstructionists to get out of the way. I mean, you know, if you can't get it done, pass it on to somebody else and just get out of the way. So I think that that's very much part of Ruckus culture. I think people really focus on results. And I also think that people collaborated very well. There wasn't a lot of who got credit and so on. I mean, maybe there were, but I wasn't aware of overt, you know, people needing to look good. And I just think that, especially at the working level, people just help one another out. And that was the part that was most heartwarming for me. And then the third thing is, you know, to have a company that have no politics. So, you know, I think it started out with team. I made sure that I stay out of the way of my team members working directly with one another. I did not need to be CC on everything, and I did not want involved when people can directly work things out. I dislike hub and spoke management. You know, one of the things that I did when for a long time was did not have set one-on-ones with my team. I had team meetings, and then people who need me come, they could instantly get me for, you know, 15 minutes, half an hour, 5 hours if they need it. But I wanted to respond to real issues when people needed me to help them with issues, to give them advice, to help them resolve things. I did not want regular one-on-ones where people save up their grievances or their requests and, you know, ask you once a week. I don't want that. But people, but they could talk to me anytime. So I think that kind of structure, encourage my team to work with one another, even when they disagree. A lot of times they work out the disagreement without involving me. And so my team, particularly if you look at the people who tend to be in conflict, right, between sales and engineering, or between HR and finance. I mean, HR always want to spend money on employees, finance need to balance everything. But they were between Seamus and Kathleen, Seamus and I'm gonna say Maynard, starting out with Rob actually, and then through all the sales heads. I did not really have to get involved. Seamus himself directly resolved all these issues, right? And with his peers.
It's pretty good.
Same thing, you know, Kathleen is another one. She had issues here and there with different groups, as you expect, head of HR. She rarely, until we need to let go of someone. She never had me involved. Most of the time it's information only. We are looking into this, who has some practice that we don't condone. And so I did not really have to directly get involved in everything. And that is what I wanted to push down.
Yeah. And I think it's because it's a safe environment. I just have to say, Selena, because if it's a safe environment and you say what's in your heart and what's in your mind, you're not scared, to put it forward. And I think that's the most critical part as well.
Celebrated that we took was our move from B2C company. Well, actually, it was a B2C company to a enterprise, selling to targeting an enterprise and service providers. I think you joined us at the tail end of this, but we started the company as a consumer electronics company. We had the best Wi-Fi, and we wanted to build Wi-Fi systems that could transmit IPTV throughout a home with, at that time, Wi-Fi was very low speed, right?
Yeah.
And we got, success carried by Hong Kong Telecom, by Deutsche Telekom, a number of big telecoms. It would have been very natural for us to continue to expand that product line, from Wi-Fi to DSL fiber gateways and all that. And we went through that whole process. But at that time, the people who build those things were ODMs from, Asia, and actually some in Turkey. And the ODMs there, the way to compete among them is always, what they call good, cheap, as a slang in Singapore goes. Technology is not value as much as packaging, cost for sure, and schedule. And the soul of our company did not match up. I mean, we were proud of our technology. We wanted to continue to be the best in one thing, and that's Wi-Fi. We really did not care about gateways and broadband and all. And so despite the early successes in selling into the consumer space, we decided we had to take our solution, to the enterprise. But at that time already, the enterprise space was very crowded with, Cisco and HP. And then you have Aruba and, those were the market leaders. And then you have other guys like Meru and Trapeze and so on and so forth. So we had to pick our space very carefully. And we asked ourselves, okay, what segment can use the best RF? It was very clear at that time that public-facing networks were having problems supporting the number of users, supporting continuous service, and service that's smooth, right? So that's when we made the decision to build Wi-Fi with a hotspot interface, and that's how we penetrated the service provider space, and that's how we penetrated the hospitality space. Of course, with the successful sales team who we built after we identified the segment. It was a lot of fun. I remember the early with Ted and going after those industries and then watching it.
Yeah, I think that as well, the sales strategy, like really hospitality, education, career. I think, am I missing anything? I think those were the three like real focus, and there was a strategic backing from the leadership.
For people who are looking at starting their own company or people who are in a small company, I think one of the critical things to look at is you have to identify the subsegment where you can win, and then you have to make sure that subsegment is big enough. If it's not big enough, you have to look at whether you can elbow your way into expanding it. But you have to have a good match between your solution offering, and that market, and you have to be able to be number one before you get in. Once you decided that your solution is a good fit, then you have to find the right channel of distribution, and to do that you have to hire the best people, salespeople.
That's awesome. So in every success, right, people only see successful, but we all know that there's a lot of Well, I wouldn't say failures. I would see them as feedback, or challenges, or things that we thought we could have done better. Like for you in Ruckus, as a leader, what would have been those moments that you've done better?
Well, I think that we made a strategic error of not developing a cloud-based controller earlier,
Mm.
and when we did, we also made a strategic error of having it run in a separate team outside of our engineering group. So I'll go in. We saw Meraki being very successful in the beginning with their cloud-based controller, and I remember at that time, Bill Kish, our CTO, was really pushing for Ruckus to do the same thing. But that was after we already started this big project with the SCG,
Yeah.
the big carrier class
Yeah.
controller, right? And that SCG story was resonated so well with our customer when we went out to pitch it. We actually already were in the midst of development of this huge controller. And then, Bill came to me and said that was the wrong approach, even though the SCG was architected by him.
Oh, okay.
That's not the right approach. I think we need to move to a cloud-based solution. And from everything that logic would tell you, you can do both. And if you can do both, and one you had early feedback, your customer base loved it, and you were already halfway there.
Yeah.
I just decided we could not pivot. We could not pivot, and we could not afford to do both. And so we continue on with the SEG effort. And then, the more we went down that road, the more we saw Meraki's success. Of course, Meraki's success is not just their solution, but they also, after the acquisition by Cisco, they had a huge army that really made that the standard. And so finally, it looked like it's inevitable for us to be competitive. We had to, on the enterprise side, we had to develop that cloud-based solution. So engineering was already, really loaded. And so I decided to set up a small team and put this solution into that small team. I decided with engineering management, not just by myself.
Yeah.
But it turned out that was really not a right solution. First of all, that team was unproven. They were able to think of a paper architecture very well, but in terms of execution, we had all kinds of issues about integration, for example, with the rest of the Ruckus the solution that we had already developed. From everything I heard, after I left, the whole cloud-based stuff had to be redone. But I think that that was a tough decision. That was a challenging time. I can't say that I would have done differently, but it's certainly, those were the decisions. It's very easy to say the road not taken was the right road.
Yeah.
But it did affect, our outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. It's it's not easy to always look back and say, "Oh, I could have done this or that's," but to be honest, I had sold SCG as well. I think it was a perfect fit for service providers like that, even for a New Zealand landscape. And cloud would really be for enterprises, but I understand that, yeah, that was tough. So okay, we all know that there's only a few women who has really brought a company public, right? And you're one of those few. And I mean, looking back in 2012.
Somebody told me I was the third woman to take a Silicon Valley company public. Silicon Valley, you would have thought a place that is so avant-garde in so many ways, right? In technology, in whole liberal culture, yet women founders and women founders who were able to take the company all the way.
Yeah.
It was very rare, and it's getting better now, but it was very rare.
It is. It is. It's giving me goosebumps, Selena. Um, yeah, you're right. Taking it public. I think there's more women CEOs right now. I'll just share you, right? There's an article that came out in New Zealand a couple of years ago saying there's more CEO that starts that has a name Mark than women CEO. So Mark Anthony, whatever. So these are the CEOs,
Yeah.
in Fertile and big companies. Than a woman CEO. Crazy,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And
changing. It's changing, but it's, it will take time.
yes, yes, and I think everyone talking about it. There's a lot of efforts from companies right now. I think I've discussed with you, like, some companies even have quota for women, and just putting some diversity in there.
Hmm.
But for you, how are you? And I guess my question would be, how are you able to break that glass ceiling? Like, how are you able to bring Ruckus into a IPO at the time?
Well, first of all, I think I was, pretty unaware that there was a glass ceiling. I mean, of course, I was aware that there were a lot more men than women, but, I just wasn't aware. I did not think that I was a female CEO. I just thought that I was a CEO. And so, I just marched on and did not look back. Clearly, I was aware that there, in a lot of places, there were things that were stacked against women. I personally had not felt, any discrimination from a, customer
Yeah.
and peer standpoint. But I tell you, we learn to accept that a lot of times people ask the question to the guy,
Yeah.
and I mean, that was, and people, yeah, people probably still do that. And I just did not let that bother me. I would answer. Basically, I just refused to be coward. Um, and I was aware that there was a pay gap, but I was just so
Mm,
thankful. I was having so much fun. I was so thankful that I was there. That I would have done it for free, to be honest.
yeah.
Not for free, but I mean, pay was the last thing that, from a selfish perspective, it was the last thing that I worry about when I was working, because I always believed that ultimately I will be rewarded by the company's success. And today, clearly, I think that we all need to fight for equal pay. We all need to fight for
Yeah.
unfair practices at work, whether it's against women or against racial minorities or against other minorities. I really think that we are becoming more enlightened people, and
Yeah.
businesses need to follow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's quite inspiring. Thank you so much, Selena. You look for in a sales leader as part of your company.
So it depends on the stage of the skill, but also an analytical skill. I think the quality of the sales leader depends on the timing. So when we first started, okay, it was really important for me when I hired the first head of sales for this person to be able to independently go out and make a sales call to pitch the story and to gauge the customer's reaction. So
Got
this is
it.
someone who clearly had to have a little bit of technical ability, right?
Yeah.
This person also needed to be a hunter. This person had to
Mm,
go and really try different doors and identify the doors or the industry segment where our solution would fit and the sales cycle would make sense, from
yeah.
a timing perspective, from a deal size perspective, etc. So this is someone who had to be, a hunter, a sales animal, but also uh, had the ability to analyze the different ways to sell, and this also had to be someone who could put together the sales playbook for
Mm,
the people that they hire, to train them on how to go out
got it.
and replicate the success. Now, when the company became more mature, then I did not need a sales leader who could go out and make sales calls. There were people. There are other people out in the field who could do that. Also, there were people in headquarters who could help
Mm,
and be the executive to make sales calls. At that point, what I needed was a sales leader who's able to hire, who's able to look at all the sales reports and come up with a consistently reliable forecast for me and
yes.
for finance, being able to process the forecast that the team gave, right, and to come
Yeah.
up with the right number for the team. That was so important, especially nowadays. It's so easy. There were a lot of times where it's very easy to go and try and push for, can I have another million?
Yeah.
And the sales leader is someone who knew when you could and when you're really pushing it and causing the following quarter to be, a disaster. So you need a sales leader who really understood the pipeline and understood the give and take. You also need a sales leader who could build an organization now, who could figure out where to grow sales next. Because you're constantly trying to expand, right? So you need someone who really understood how to expand, where to expand. And so they may be the same person, they may not be in many cases. And, and I think that for sales professionals, it's also very important for them to themselves see what made them enjoy the job. I mean, a lot of people wanted to lead sales teams of 1,000 people. Well, that may not make you happy if you happen to be a hunter and you love the juice of, going out and winning a deal. You want to be a startup, an entrepreneurial type of head of sales, right? Not the one who runs
like a manager,
1,000 salespeople organizations. A sales leader needs to understand the style of their team. There are some great salespeople who consistently were too optimistic, right? They're great people. The head of sales need to be able to take a discount there. There were salespeople who just would never tell you that a deal can be done until like the PO is in the pocket. So a good sales leader is someone who doesn't just superficially take a number, right? They have to diligently, constantly review the pipeline. They themselves might go out to see the customer just, from time to time. They can't go everywhere, but from time to time, they need to kind of understand the integrity of that pipeline. But sales forecast is always a difficult thing to do because we sometimes can fall into the trap of when you miss, you blame it on, that order did not come in this quarter, but it'll come in next quarter. And so you kind of try and pull other things in. The thing that you counted on that didn't come in, you would miss the following quarter. So there, it's a good head of sales work tightly with the head of operations and with finance to really, they constantly at Ruckus, Seamus and head of sales and head of, and Fred, we constantly work together. They work together to really take the numbers and come up with the forecast that we could give to Wall Street. When you're a public company, that's life and death. And and I've also seen people who under forecast. And when you under forecast, because you kind of always want to, there's the saying, right? You always want to err on you always want to have a nice surprise. Well, the problem is when you under forecast, we have part shortages in the industry. And if you didn't order enough, having a long lead time could also kill your business.
I'm very, very grateful that you spend this time with me. Being part of Ruckus was, I may say the best part of my corporate career. I've had really great success as well. Great success and well with Alcatel. But the entrepreneurial spirit, I wouldn't have gotten it if I didn't join Ruckus. So thank you so much, Selina, and your management team and and everyone in Ruckus who have touched my life. I'm so grateful.
Well, all the best to you and your new career path. And, for whoever watching this, if you worked at Ruckus, I love you. After Ruckus, there are many things in life to spend time on. Follow me, but I think you're doing a great thing. I love mentoring. I love trying to share my experience with the next generation because, the stuff that we learn, right, by experience, a lot of times they're not things on textbook, and there's no record of what to do, what not to do, and sometimes being able to give people advice is a great thing. You feel wonderful. And I think what you're doing is something that's very essential. Like, it's not just to meet with you for half an hour and get a download. It's more people feel like, oh, when they come into a situation and they are kind of
Yes.
unsure, they could call you and have, right, and use you as a sounding board or get
Yeah.
your view. There might be multiple paths to do things, and I think that what you're doing is really
Thank you, Selena. Lots
love
of love to
you,
you.
all
Love
the
you
best,
too. Thank you so
success,
much.
everything.
Thank you for being there. Thank you. Bye. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.